The following conversations, audio recordings, and testimonies all pertain to the incident which occurred from October 7th to October 30th in the Aden County National Reserve and its outlying towns, Aden and Greenvale. The first part contains both a series of emails between researchers Michael Hayes and Richard Harris.
Richie, I know that we haven't spoken in a long time and that you need your space, but earlier today, while me and my crew were digging for new mineral samples, we stumbled upon something huge. Get back to me as soon as you can. Michael.
Despite the creeping feeling that you're trying to get me to respond, I'll bite. What did you find? Oh, and what do you mean by new mineral samples? What happened to the old mineral samples?
Richie, what happened to the old samples isn't anything to worry about right now. We've got bigger things to discuss. As I had said in my previous email, me and my crew, that is to say a crew of 20 bored college grads, were digging up at the base of the tallest mountain in the park. I can't remember its name, when we found the entrance to the vault. Most of the kids were more interested in the view, which was, granted, a very nice one. But some of the kids were actually trying to earn their credit for a change, and it was this little group who called me over, rather suddenly, just as I was about to call it a day. Their voices were so loud, and their collective tone was both excited and frightened. I leaped from my chair and ran past a little cluster of trees to where they were. I found them all crowded around something that I couldn't make out until I was close enough, but when I saw what it was, I understood both of their reactions. The ground had collapsed where they had been digging, the loose soil falling away into a hole which had appeared out of nowhere. So I pushed past the whispering, frightened students and looked down, trying to see if someone had fallen in. Hoping that no one had, we're on a shoestring budget as it is without having to deal with a lawsuit, but I didn't see some deep, dark pit. I saw a set of stairs descending down into the darkness. A faint rush of cold air hit me when I leaned in for a closer look and I backed away. I've heard stories about toxic spores found in the tombs beneath the pyramids. So I went to my tent and retrieved my bandana, which I tied around my face, as well as my gloves, which I put on. I mean, I just had to see what was down there. I had to. I returned to find that some of the kids were already starting towards the stairs. I warned them off in my best, stern teacher voice and made sure that they had some form of protection as well as lights. I swear, I must be the only one who thinks these things through. I had one of the kids, a girl by the name of Lori Summers, go tell the others what we had found and what we intended to do, and when she came back, we started our exploration. The stairs led down farther than I had anticipated. The descent halted only by a few landings where we stopped and talked amongst each other. Or, rather, the kids talked. I was too busy examining the floor, walls, and ceiling. And what I found is pretty damn strange. The material looked like obsidian. Now, I'm not an expert in archaeology, but I've never heard of a temple made of obsidian. Maybe you could share some of that knowledge with me? The stairs ended after a bit and we found ourselves in an antechamber. It was colder than a frost giant scrote down there, but the air was so still. Stagnant, even. Probably a good thing I wore my mask and gloves, eh? Anyway, from the antechamber we emerged into a short tunnel which led to a surprisingly spacious chamber. Everything was so dark that our flashlights did less than we'd have hoped. Thankfully, nobody got hurt. As it turned out, there were 5 chambers in total, just 5, which strikes me as more than a bit weird. But believe me, it got weirder from there. You see, the first 4 rooms held nothing. No dust, no furniture, no bodies, and no signs of animal life. I didn't even see a single spider or cobweb while I was down there. But the 5th room was different. The 5th room had something in it. I honestly have no idea what the hell it is. At first glance, I thought it was a sarcophagus of some kind due to its shape, but when I got closer, I saw that this wasn't the case at all. It had a rudimentary face and body etched into it, but unlike the mummies' tombs that I've seen, the overall picture didn't add up to something human. I honestly can't really describe what was wrong with it, but everything about it looked off despite how it looked from a distance. The coffin is also made of metal, though I'll need to run a few tests to determine just what type of metal it is. We brought it back here and have been setting up the necessary equipment, but I think that this one will give us a bit more trouble than the usual fare, mostly because I can't see any way into the damn thing. I feel like one of those handsome adventurer scientists you'd see in a B-movie, looking over something new and interesting, waiting with bated breath to see what will come of this new find. It's so interesting. Maybe we can talk more in person, say, over dinner? Michael. Sorry I missed dinner. Work at the lab has yielded some unforeseen results, and me and most of my team have been feeling under the weather. I'm glad the kids let my team do the rest of the work. Don't think that I could stand to hear them whining about how much their heads hurt or how sick they've been feeling. I feel like crap in the usual flu-type way, but I haven't stopped working on opening that damned coffin or whatever it really is. It seems as though we've stumbled across something new. How many of us get to say that? So yes, my health is worth it. The samples, the metal from the coffin and the stone from the chamber, came back yesterday. I can safely say that I've never seen anything like it. As it turns out, the stone is obsidian in appearance only. It was apparently filled with microscopic bands of frozen liquid which has yet to yield a match to any known chemical compound, and I swear this is true. It's warm. Not room temperature, it's consistently stayed at 37 degrees Celsius. And the metal, every one of our tests has come up negative. Every single one. It looks and feels like metal, but it isn't. I don't have any idea what it is. This could be big, Richie, really big.
The last email was never sent. It was found as a saved draft on Mr. Hayes' computer.
Have you ever had a dream that was so bad you woke up in tears? I did last night. It was awful. So real. At first I thought I was on a seashore, but the ground was warm and moist beneath my feet, and when I looked down, I saw that instead of sand, there were pores and tiny hairs and purple veins. I looked at the sea and saw something that looked like water, but was stagnant and stank like an infected cut. And above me I saw a dark, cloudless red sky without stars or a moon. It was so real, I didn't think that I was going to wake up. Today at the lab, everyone went about their business without talking. I knew that something was wrong. Something was hanging over everyone's head like a guillotine waiting to fall. Some of my colleagues are irritable today. Many smell like they haven't washed and all have bags under their eyes. They're not listless, though. If anything, they're more intent on their work than they usually are. Most of them aren't even talking to each other. We've decided to open the coffin using strong acids to weaken the metal, or whatever it is, before taking a saw to it. We'll have it open in a few hours, and then we can all rest.
The following is a transcription of the testimony of police officers Edmund Monroe, who was called to investigate the research facility after 2 weeks of no outside contact. It is November 3rd, and I am here with the witness. State your name and badge number for the record, sir.
Officer Edmund Thomas Moore. My badge number is hold on. 0902453.
All right, you may proceed with your testimony.
Oh, can I? Can I really? It's only been 3 hours since we started. You FBI guys are exactly as uptight about rules as the movies say. Either that or you're unbelievably shitty at figuring out how recorders
The
work.
testimony, Officer Moore.
What? Is the newfangled computer thing too much for you to handle? You look like you're, what, 20? 21? How the hell do you not know how to work a computer?
The testimony, Officer Moore, I have all day.
Obvious.
Officer Moore.
All right. Just give me a minute.
Officer Moore.
Do not rush me. You weren't there, kid. You didn't see it, so with all due respect, shut the fuck up and give me a damn minute. All right. I was called in on October 10th. I'd been anticipating some time alone with my wife, so I was a bit ticked when I got the call. I wanted to tell them to get another officer, but the recent flooding in Alden had left the station understaffed and stretched pretty thin. What my little town lacks in population, it makes up for in overzealous whining. I cannot count the times I've been called out because some old lady thought she saw a wolf or a bear or a Bigfoot. Despite their pleading, I wanted to let them handle it, but Andrea, that's my wife, told me to go. So that was that. Now, my little town lies farther from the National Reserve. Alden is the town closest to it, but some of that wilderness reaches us and makes it pretty as a postcard. So we were constantly ranked pretty high up on the list of prettiest towns, right next to some in Vermont and Maine. I used to agree with popular opinion on that. The summers out there were warm and full of every shade of green you could think of. The falls were cozy, and the local kids made a hell of a lot of profit from leaf raking. The winters suck, though, but when do they ever not? I'm stalling. Sorry. It was early in October, so the cold was creeping in, and the leaves were clogging the gutters. It had rained all that week, and all the weather reports were saying that it'd keep raining. It did rain a bit on the way to the lab, but it cleared up pretty quick. New England weather and all that. The lab was a big 4-story concrete and metal monstrosity which looked out of place in all that wilderness, like a scar almost. I got out of the car and I noticed that the lights were still on. I went up to the door, hoping that all the people there were just too deep into their work to talk to the outside world, but I got no response no matter what I did. So I called in our resident lockpick, who overcharged me before he did his job, and went in. I looked around, gave myself a tour of the facility. I knew that something wasn't quite right from the moment I stepped foot in there. It was far too quiet. There were no sounds except the pattering of rain on the roof. More signs started appearing as I worked my way through the place. A kitchen full of expired food, a spilled cup of coffee near the stairway to the 3rd floor that was feeding a mouse, an upended wastebasket near a bathroom, and a whole lot of open doors. There were little things, but each one put an extra weight on my mind. But I wasn't scared, just unnerved. And then I got to the 4th, final floor. I was walking down the hall when I felt a draft through one of the open doors. I looked in, and I saw that the largest window in the room had been shattered. I went in to investigate and immediately noticed that there were no trees near the window that were high enough to reach it. There was no debris on the floor and no glass on the inside, and the outer edges of the window frame were bent, cracked.
And that was what scared you.
So it finally talks. And no, it wasn't. It was what I found, lying in a heap off to the side, away from the window.
What did you find?
Clothes. A big pile of wet clothing just lying there soaking up the rain. That was when I started to get scared. It was an image that just struck me as unnatural. I rummaged through them and found the wallets and jewelry and money all intact, so whatever it wasn't a robbery.
Was there any blood?
None. The clothes were ripped. That was it. At this point, I was sufficiently ready to call in backup, so I went out of the room to see if I could get a better signal outside, and I was about halfway to the stairs when I saw a shadow on the wall opposite me. I turned around, and there she was, standing in a doorway, dirty and mad, like a rabid dog. The instant she saw me, she bolted. I decided to err on the side of caution and call in backup. I didn't follow her. The look in her eyes was warning enough, but I did take a look at the room where she had come from. The room had probably been one of the swankier labs, but everything, all of the equipment, the beakers and the chemicals in them were smashed and shattered. And at the center of the room was a tall metal thing. Looked like a coffin. But there were way too many sides, and the metal bulged out in weird ways. I went up to get a closer look, and I saw that the front, at least I think that it was the front, was decorated with some kind of ghoul or monster, one whose face was gone.
Could you elaborate?
There was a hole where the face used to be. It was like something had punched through it, but the edges of the metal were bent outwards.
Just for the record, do you have any theories about what might have been in that coffin?
Even after what's happened, I still don't know. And I don't want to know. Leave it at that.
And the woman?
We later found out her name was Lori Summers. But it took some doing, considering she was far too violent to let us fingerprint her. We eventually got lucky. Another officer managed to get some hair from her as she was trying to tear hers out. She didn't really tell us anything that we thought was important. When I asked her what had happened to her colleagues, she only said, they were taken. After what happened at the lab, everyone at the station, myself included, were a bit on edge. We had a bunch of missing people, the family and friends of whom were breathing down our necks within a day of rumors spreading, and our only witness wasn't in the right mental state to tell us anything. I was more unnerved than the others because I was there first. So when the call came and I heard what was going on, I felt like I was going to throw up. Over the course of one night, we received about a dozen emergency calls from Alden, all of which sounded legitimate. Alden is too small to have a real police force. The most they have is a sheriff, a car, and a few guns inside a puny former office building, so they call us for big emergencies. The call started at 8:45 when a local hunter called from his lodge to report that his friends hadn't returned from what was supposed to be a short trip. An hour later, an old woman called to say that she saw something moving outside of her summer home, and 50 minutes after that, a little girl called us to say that she had seen a monster outside her window. Her parents had gone out to calm her down, and they hadn't got back. The calls kept coming in after those first three, but the others were pretty similar. Eventually, the calls stopped. I was called in after the last one had been recorded. It was a woman. She said her name was Sandra Williams. She said that her and the rest of her town had huddled up in the high school. There's something outside, she said. We keep hearing it out in the streets. It sounds big. We went to Alden at dawn and found a school full of very frightened, very tired people. Once that was done, we all formed search parties to go out looking for the missing townspeople. I was the one in charge of the second largest group, and we took the alleyways and backyards. But all I saw was a trampoline with its mesh siding ripped apart, a few cars with their doors open, and 7 piles of clothes. All torn. All bloodless.
I see. Now, before we take a break, I need to bring something you said previously up. You mentioned having a nightmare the same night. Can you tell me And tell me anything about it.
Why? They're just dreams. What?
Just please tell us
Why do I need to?
All I can tell you is that the scientists who were working on the coffin may have experienced nightmares similar to yours. Now, will you please recount your first dream?
All right. I was standing in some kind of field or plain, surrounded by trees on all sides. It was dusk, so the light was getting dim, but I could still see the ground beneath me and the horizon. I knew something wasn't right almost immediately. It was so quiet. The air didn't move. There were no signs of life all around me, and I got this feeling that the place, wherever the hell it was a dead place. A place where nothing could grow or thrive. I started walking, but the ground never moved when I did. It was like I was walking in place. And then a shadow fell over me. And I got this feeling of being watched from someplace high up. I looked up, and there, above me, where the sun should have been, was this big, swollen tumor that moved like a heart, and as I looked, it got closer and closer, making the ground tremble as it did. Then something moved just underneath the ground, something I couldn't see, but I could still feel through the soles of my shoes, something very large, something that kept me from running. And then I heard something pierce through the quiet. Something tore it up and filled my ears. I wanted to cover my ears, but I couldn't.
What did you hear?
Screaming. Men, children, women, all of them screaming like the skin was being pulled off their bodies, screaming like they had been set on fire. The tumor was right above me now, and when I looked up again, I got a good look at its surface. It wasn't a tumor. It was a mass of people, all naked, all fused to each other with their own blood and skin, all bloody and mutilated and screaming and struggling to tear themselves free as something beneath them, more people, I think, pressed up against them. And Andrea was among them. I picked her out almost immediately. I told you about Andrea. We've been married for almost 12 years now. She's the light of my life. I'd do anything for her. And to see her like that, begging and screaming like that, I'm glad the phone woke me up.
I see.
Are you married? You got a girlfriend? Boyfriend?
Not as of right now.
Then you don't know shit.
Mr. Moore, we're not done yet. Please sit down.
I'm taking a smoke.
Mr. Moore. The next testimony was given by Sandra Williams, who recounts her night in the school.
I'm not a heavy sleeper. I've been living alone for about 5 years, and I guess I'm a bit of a paranoid. Even out in Alden, which is by all accounts totally nice and pleasant, I never felt exactly safe at nighttime. I don't know, maybe it was just how close to the woods my house was. I've never been a big fan of the great outdoors. I just don't like the idea of being alone out there in the dark. Even before that night, I heard things near my backyard, and the constant mention of wolves and bears and snakes didn't help either. So, I guess my paranoia paid off. It was around midnight when I woke up. My house is a little one-story place with a big backyard. I'd heard and seen animals in there before. Raccoons and cats, mostly, but what I heard moving around in the dark sounded a lot bigger. I got up quickly, got my socks on, and went to the window in my bedroom. I didn't see anything but a tree trunk, so I went to the back door and looked out. It was so dark out there. The trees grow pretty tall out there, so the moon was hidden, and my porch lights were getting up there in years, so they weren't as bright as they used to be. So when I turned them on, they barely lit up the porch. I couldn't see anything out there, so I thought that maybe whatever it was got scared off and moved on or something. I had just started to go back to bed when I heard something bump into the side of my house, farther away from the backyard, near the bedroom. A second later, the window in my bedroom shattered and I ran out the front door as fast as I could. I tried my neighbor's house, but they were gone for a week and I had left my car behind, so I ran all the way to town. I got to the sheriff's office and told him what had happened. He promised that he'd send someone to check out my house and had me wait and fill out some paperwork and give a statement. So he sent someone out and I sat back and waited. But the officer didn't come back. And then the calls started coming in, one after the other, each one making the sheriff more and more stressed. I tried to ask him what was going on, but he just told me to wait at the station while he went out and looked things over himself. Honestly, I didn't expect him to come back, but he did. He came back into the office, clutching his side and huffing like an asthmatic. I went over to see if he needed help, but he grabbed my shoulders and said, "Sandy, something's happening here. Something bad. We need to go to the school and meet up with the others. Something's out there, and it's taking people." As you can expect, what he said made my heart leap into my throat, and I beat him to the car. We rode in silence, with me staring out the window, taking in the empty houses and cars. A few times I thought I saw something moving in the alleys and on the rooftops. I tried to dismiss them as just shadows and my exhaustion kicking in. But after what happened, I think that whatever it was that came into our town was following the car. Our town has a school that had obviously been designed by someone who thought that Alden was going to become some massive city. It's a big 4-story brick building with a lot of very tall windows. We were able to fit most of what was left of the town in the gym. Everyone looked scared and tired, and the mayor looked like he was about to have a heart attack. Everyone was just standing around, looking worried or crying because someone they knew or loved had gone missing. I wasn't feeling very talkative, so I left the main group and wandered over to a nearby window. Everything was so still. There wasn't a breeze. There wasn't a sound from outside. It was like someone had pressed the mute button on the world. I had even tuned out the people in the gym, trying to just get a hold of myself. I didn't bother trying to see who was or wasn't there. But I later learned that out of 1,000, only 523 people were left. A few hours passed and my eyes started to get heavy. Everyone else had quieted down and were just milling about, looking unsure of what to do. The families were all clustered together, trying to comfort each other. The full weight of what had happened hit me right then, I think, and I just leaned against the window as my knees got weak. Outside, the moon was hidden by clouds and pretty low on the horizon. It was that time of night when dawn wasn't too far away, but it still wasn't light out. The window overlooked both the playground and street which passed by the school. I decided to stare out into space and try to keep myself calm. I kept telling myself that help would come soon, but I honestly didn't know if that was true. Maybe the calls hadn't gotten through to the real police. Maybe they didn't believe us, or maybe whatever was out there in the darkness had gone to Greenvale first. That last thought made me want to throw up. I was about to go ask someone for their phone when I saw something outside move. I didn't see all of it, but I saw how big it was and how... I honestly can't really find a word to describe how its silhouette looked besides wrong. I couldn't spend too much time trying to piece together what I had seen. The thing, whatever it was, had found us and was right outside the school. I alerted everyone, and they all set about going into the depths of the school to lock the doors and barricade the windows with whatever they could find. I commandeered a phone from someone and called the police in Greenvale. After about an hour, the people who had fortified the school came back, and we all sat, huddled together in the dark, listening. I honestly didn't expect to hear anything. It was getting lighter outside, and I guess I was remembering all those childhood stories where the monsters vanish at sunrise. But that wasn't the case. Just as the morning bird song was starting, we heard one of the barricades near the gym break. I was one of the people who got to the barricade first. I saw the thing push the tables away from one of the windows near the main entrance. Again, I didn't see all of it, but I did see 3 hands clawing at the table, pushing it and splintering it with punches. I was close enough to see that the hands were bloodied, the skin in tatters, the nails ripped off, bits of glass stuck through the palms. But I never heard a sound from outside. No breathing, no grunting, no talking. The hands just kept coming at the table. Someone, a man who I think must have been a teacher, had found a fire extinguisher somewhere in the building, so he tried bashing at the hands. He actually broke some fingers. I could hear the bones breaking from where I was. It took a few hits, but eventually the hands drew back through the window. And that's when the smell hit me. I swear to you, it stank like the world's biggest infected cut. It was horrible. Reminded me of maggots and pus and rotting meat. The thing left us alone after that, but we could still hear it moving around the school, so we were all on edge even after the police came. I'm honestly surprised that none of them got attacked too. I haven't gone back home yet. I don't think I can after what happened. I have a friend who still lives there, and she says that the whole town feels like a tomb, and everyone who still lives there can feel how wrong the whole place is. She tells me that everyone there looks tired out and afraid. She says she's been having bad dreams, although she won't tell me what they're about. She says that even the policemen who are stationed there are just as uneasy as the people who chose to stay. I'll have my friend get my things for me. She's going to move away, and I think I'll join her. Alden isn't safe. I think it needs to just fade away.
This next testimony was given shortly after Sandra Williams's. Not long after her testimony was recorded, several officers stationed in Aden were found in comatose states near wooded areas. Near them were found several strange clusters of organic material which was found to emit a noxious gas in large quantities. Most of these clusters were burned, but several were taken for examination. Please take your seat, and, please state your name and occupation for the record, sir.
My name is Herbert Halsey. I'm a coroner and microbiologist working at Quantico. I was brought in to study the mounds found in Alden.
All right. My next question was going to be, what were you called in for, but I can see that you've beaten me to that, so... What can you tell us about the mounds?
Well, some people came into my office one day and told me that there was something that I needed to take a look at. At first, I thought it would be a standard autopsy or something like that, but when they shepherded me to a decontamination shower in a hazmat suit, I knew I was in for a day.
Sure it was. Now, can you tell me about the mounds?
Of course. When I first saw them, I wasn't honestly sure whether or not I was being pranked. I mean, they looked like big old piles of offals just plopped into trays. But then I got closer, and let me tell you, I decided to drop what I was doing to examine them. I mean, I don't mean to get my hopes up, but what I found will probably get me in a few medical papers, maybe some of the big ones like the New England Journal of Medicine. I mean, how many...
Sir, could you please describe the mounds?
Oh, yes, of course. Well, they were large and red and covered with fine white hairs. They were soft to a degree and filled with little holes like a shower head. And their bases had a few dozen offshoots that looked like, well, like veins and arteries.
So the stuff was... flesh?
Yes. I ran it through a few dozen tests, took a look at it under the microscope, all that stuff. And I found that it was composed mainly of dog, deer, bobcat, several types of birds, and an unknown substance that I've yet to identify. I found various animal organs inside of the thing when I cut it open, but all of them had been, well, I guess the scientific term is assimilated. They had been assimilated into one mass. But it wasn't some bizarre case where the organs had rotted and putrefied and turned into a slurry. No, it was whole, and it was functional. Everything needed for an organ to work was in place. There was no damage. The different parts had been blended together seamlessly.
What was its function?
I found a strange, very volatile liquid inside of the organ, one which reacted to oxygen in a very odd way. You see, I took a sample and put it under an electron microscope. When I took a look, I discovered that the cells within the liquid were actually multiplying. Within a few hours, my petri dish was filled with little red clumps which had a cellular and biological structure like I'd never seen before.
I see. And how fast did they grow?
Fast enough so that they spilled out over the petri dish and started to spread over the counter, and I had just left the office for a few hours. Of course, we had to burn the samples after that happened, but it was for the best.
And the mounds?
We recorded what we could, froze a few samples, and burned the rest. It was excreting spores that probably would have had dangerous effect had we not decontaminated the whole damn place.
Well, thank you for your testimony, Dr. Hazley. You may leave now.
Oh, trying to get rid of me quick, huh? You got another interview coming up?
Yes. He'll be back from his smoke break soon. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Same here.
Welcome back, Officer Moore.
Yes, hi, whatever. Let's just finish this. You want to know what happened on the 23rd and 24th, right?
Yes.
Fine, just let me leave after this.
I think that can be arranged.
Good, this place stinks like a hospital. I don't like to be out after dark anymore.
Could you please...
You know that what was out there wasn't human, right?
You've indicated that, Officer Moore, but I don't believe in monsters, at least not the kind you're talking about.
That thing wasn't human, kid. There's evidence to support my theory. Like what Sandra Williams saw that night in the school, she told me in vivid detail.
She said it was dark.
No,
and
the sun was already up.
She might have been hallucinating.
For what? We tested her. She came out clean of any mind-altering drugs, and her fellow townspeople corroborated her story. We tested them all, and no one was on anything, so that's out the window. Try another, kid.
Maybe the scientists were contaminated by some kind of mind-altering spore from the coffin, and they just went crazy and ran off.
That's almost a comforting thought, but if that were the case, Then did the same thing happen to the people in Alden? I asked the people who got a hold of that coffin to check it for anything like that, and do you know what they concluded?
That there were no spores.
That's right, no spores. Not even the slightest trace of mold or fungus. They told me that coffin barely had dust on it. So what would make a building full of respectable, sane people strip and run off into the woods? Were they on drugs too, huh?
Maybe they were scared?
Scared? Scared so bad they jumped out of their clothes?
I don't know. Let's wrap this up.
All right. I was called in after a bunch of my fellow officers were found in comas up in Alden. Comas. I don't honestly know what the chief was thinking sending them up there. It's not like whoever took the people was just going to come waltzing out of the woods and give itself up, and I highly doubt that anyone left in Alden had the spirit to riot or start shit with each other. So the officers, their names were Tony Rhodes, Claudio D'Amico, and Curtis Parker, if you want to know, ended up in comas near a bunch of meat pods or whatever the hell they were, and that got most of my higher-ups off their asses, and they actually tried to do something. They called me and a bunch of others in to do a search of the woods. They brought the dogs, plenty of firepower, and the helicopter with the big-ass searchlight, the whole 9 yards. We split up into groups of 2 and spread out with the intent of going in a grid pattern. Me and my partner, a guy named Bill Lincoln, who was as old and experienced as I was, found ourselves alone pretty quick. We tried the usual things to keep away that uneasy feeling when you're alone in the wilderness. We joked and talked about our favorite movies and our loved ones, but our words ran out after a while, so we walked in silence. It was the silence, I think, that started getting to me. I've been in the woods, in the reserve, plenty of times. There was always animal activity. But not that night. That night, all I could hear were our footsteps and the wind moaning through the trees around us. It was like whatever had settled there had driven the animals away. Bill and I were quite a ways in when we heard something coming at us from the undergrowth to our left. We readied our guns and aimed them where we thought the attack would come from. I can still feel the tremor in my hand when I think of that moment. I was petrified, waiting for the boogeyman to lunge out from the shadows, wondering if I could fire the gun. But as it turned out, I didn't have to. The thing that bounded out of the undergrowth was a deer, a big buck with one of its antlers snapped off. It was gone just as quickly as it had come, but the fear in its eyes told me that the thing was close. Another few steps, and we passed a canopy and came to a place where the trees had been bent and cracked, and the ground was torn up and covered in tracks, some of which looked just like the marks of bare feet and hands.
What did you do then?
I did my job and called it in. Now I was content to just stay put and wait until everyone grouped up. All that went out the window when I heard something ahead of us, not too far away, but far enough so that we had no clue where it was coming from. Now I was content just to stay put and wait until everybody grouped up, but all that went out the window when I heard something ahead of us, not too far away, but far enough so that we had no clue where it was coming from. It was a girl. A little girl. She was screaming. Do you have any younger siblings?
Yes. A brother.
You ever break a bone when he was little?
Yeah. We were at a Walgreens. He slipped on some ice, broke his arm in 2 places.
Do you remember how he screamed?
Yes.
The sound that I heard that night from out of the darkness was 1,000 times more agonized than that. It was a little girl screaming like every bone in her body was getting ground to paste. The screaming kept going, and both of us were looking around, and neither of us knew where the hell it was coming from. And then Bill screamed. What happened next happened so fast, so damn fast. 1 minute he was beside me, his gun was drawn. The next minute he was on his back, his gun gone and his body being dragged into the darkness with more speed than I thought was humanly possible. He was gone before I could try to help, but I did see something in those seconds before he was gone. I saw 2 hands clutching Bill's ankle. One with painted nails. One with a wedding ring. It was stupid, but I just stood there after it happened. I couldn't wrap my head around what had just happened. I didn't see where the hands ended or where they had come from or how they could have dragged poor Bill away like that with as much speed as they did. It felt like someone had sucker punched me. I should have reacted faster. Maybe I could have gotten a shot off, scared the thing away. Then again, maybe not. I was only really brought back to Earth when I heard Bill start screaming from somewhere nearby. And unlike the girl, he kept on screaming. And I was able to get a good read on where he was, so I ran after him.
Your fellow officers said they found you near the main road. Is that where you went?
No, I followed the screaming deeper into the woods. Got some nasty cuts from the brambles, stumbled over roots, nearly broke my neck a few times, but I didn't care. It had just been such a long month. Month of waking up from nightmares, of listening intently to the local radio, wondering if I'd hear about more disappearances, of wondering if whatever had taken those scientists had seen me in the lab, if I was going to come home to find it waiting in the darkness for me. Or maybe coming back home and finding a window broken, and a pile of ripped clothes belonging to my wife. Now I was going to get some answers. Now I was going to get some answers. At least, that's what I thought. Bill kept screaming, and the louder it got, the more afraid I became. But I kept on running until I burst through a cluster of trees and found myself in a clearing. Well, it used to be a clearing. When I got there, it looked more like hell itself had oozed up from the earth. Those mounds you guys found, the ones made from animal parts, they were everywhere. They were all growing from animals who had their stomachs opened up and their guts stretched out over the ground. There were so many of them, it must have been most of the reserve's animal population in one place. The ground was completely covered in them. When I got closer, I saw that their muscles and tissue, their skin and bones, they'd all been ripped out and woven together like a carpet. And the mounds were all moving, pulsing like hearts. I could hear them from all of them together at the same time. And the animals? The animals were still alive. I saw them move and twitch. I could hear them trying to breathe. I saw the moonlight reflected off their eyes. They couldn't have been alive, but they were.
Officer Moore, please calm down.
That's why the woods were so silent. All of the fucking animals were plastered together in that clearing and turned into a living carpet. I could still hear their lungs trying to work and those tiny little whimpers they made.
Mr. Moore?
And at the center of the clearing, surrounded by these huge throbbing mounds, was a pond that stank like piss and blood and other things, a pond where all the juices from those animals collected. I heard Bill from across the way, and I looked, and there he was, being dragged to the pond by it looked like a tentacle or a tail. But when I looked closer, I saw that 2 hands that had grabbed him, then 2 more, then a dozen more, and then I saw arms. Arms of every skin color. And wet muscle, and dripping intestine. The thing that had hold of him was made of human parts, and it was moving. Bill screamed for help. He screamed like a child, like a baby when it gets delivered. He begged and cried and howled as he was dragged closer to the pond, and I just stood there and watched. And then I saw something in the pond move. Something big. Something that twitched and moved like every part of it was living. A leg, at least that's what I think it was, came out and grabbed hold of the ground with 1,000 fingers. Another followed, then 4 more. And then the rest of it came out. Have you ever seen a person go into shock? Sure, yeah, I have too. But I never actually experienced it before that night. But when that thing surfaced, I just felt my whole body go cold. It looked like a spider and a crab and an octopus all at the same time, but every part of it was made from human remains. Legs with their feet still attached, and arms with their hands intact dangled below it, twitching and grabbing at nothing. Its back was made from bones, spines, femurs, whole fucking skeletons, all bound by tendons and other stuff. In between the cracks in its hide, I saw organs. Smaller limbs. The thing which had a hold of Bill was, I think, the thing's tongue. I don't know. I don't know. I used what I had left of my strength to run the other way as fast as I could. It ate Bill. I know it did. Officially, he's been reported as missing, but they're never going to find his body. They may find his clothes, though. If they ever find that clearing, and if they do, they're not going to leave to report back. I quit after that night. Packed my things and left with Andrea, and didn't say a word to anyone. I'm not guilty about that. I had to get out, had to protect my wife. I used to think that the world was simple. But bad shit happened and we had to live with it, that the universe was one big clusterfuck of bizarre coincidences. That there was nothing supernatural, no boogeymen, no monsters that didn't look human. But I know better now. Listen to me, kid. If you have any say whatsoever, you'll get your bosses to go into that reserve and set the fucking place on fire.
That's just... I can't believe that.
Have you seen the news, kid? I have. Seems like the people who live near the reserve have started reporting less animal activity than is normal. Pretty soon, whatever remained of the animal population is going to be gone. Fuel for whatever that thing is doing. And how much you want to bet that you'll be seeing a few disappearances in the towns that are farther away in the coming months? Take my advice. Talk to our bosses.
I think our time is up here, Officer Moore. You can go now. We'll have a car waiting when you get out.
Thank God. You remember what I said, kid. Burn the reserve. Don't let that thing spread.
As of now, 17 disappearances have been reported in towns near and around the reserve. There also seems to have been a sudden rash of nightmares, with elements much like the ones described previously, in many people in the surrounding towns, and even outside of them. These statements have been gathered in order to provide clues as to who the culprit might be. No actions, government-sanctioned or otherwise, have been taken.